Hi, I'm Marion Sinclair. I'm the Chief Executive of Publishing Scotland, which is the network, trade and development body for the book publishing industry. We're here at XpoNorth with a panel of industry experts on the Page to Screen event. And I'm going to ask them some questions. I think we're going to start with Jessica. Jessica, this is something that we have been talking about for some time, a number of years now. How do we bring the film worlds and publishing and writers together? And during the session we had some tips and hints from the three of you. But from your perspective, you had some very specific points to make.
Yeah, so from the writer's perspective, to meet people like Micheal and like Diana, who are producers, so to get your work from the page to the screen requires, I guess, different strategies. One strategy is events like Page to Screen, where you get to network and mix. Two other strategies I found that are really helpful is finding mentors, so finding people who believe in you and your work. They can be other screenwriters, they can be producers, and being bullshit about how you approach them. Some of my greatest collaborations have been when you either meet people through friends or you meet people through events and you just walk up to them and just start chatting and develop a kind of friendship and a relationship. And then the other thing I do is most writers are introverts, so it's good to be able to talk your story because you have to talk about your story to producers. So finding any way to do that from acting classes, or I find it really helpful to work with oral storytellers and get them to kind of talk out stories and learn how to talk a story because it's different than being on the page. So that can be a bridge from page to screen.
Great. And the two worlds don't often collide, Diana, and so there is a bit of demystification really about what happens in, well, what does a producer do? What are the timescales? What about the money? And I know that you had some interesting thoughts on the shopping process particularly.
Well, I was thinking that my sort of most successful process has been with writers who we become partners. So we find each other through the various means that Jessica's just outlined, or even writers can be looking through an IMD listing and find out their favorite films or favorite producers and reach out to them, get to them through their agents, send them a log line, send them a short, passionate summary about what it is that they want to see get made, and see if they can hook a creative producer. Once that's done, or if a producer finds a book or a writer that they want to work with, they have to be partners. Their publisher has to support this and make it easier. So there's a triangle of a writer, a creative producer, and a publisher, and they have to agree to give the producer some time to make something happen and not expect to pay back very quickly, but be in for the long haul. So make a shopping agreement that gives 18 months, say, to go out and find financing and develop a proper screenplay or a pitch. If you go to a big studio, protect that writer when you do it. And if you are doing it with a shoestring budget, do it carefully and share the sort of artistic vision. What do you think?
Yeah, I totally agree. I think the other thing is that people always talk about the budgets of movies, and the average price, I think, is $40 million now, and it can go higher. The average price to advertise a movie is $60 million. About a third of that is just to get people to know the title and to get familiar with the story. So one of the keys is just to emphasize that you're walking in with a property that already has built-in awareness, a built-in audience, and people that you know will show up on opening weekend.
I think that you're emphasising the primacy of the story, that it wasn't really about scale or even perhaps in a sense character, that the story is all important, and that's really what publishers and writers need to focus on and concentrate on very strongly.
And passion. You cannot tell a story you don't feel passionate about. You can't climb this hill and push it to the place where it actually happens if it's not for you. You've got to be the right person to tell the story and believe in it.
It also makes for a great comedy of reality series when you sit down with somebody who has written a book and the director insists that there are scenes in her book that should be in the movie and they don't exist in there, and they act as if they know the story better than the author, and we've been guilty of that sin with Susan Cooper, The Dark is Rising. We did such a bad version of that we had to change the name to The Seeker, which sounded like a game show. Hey, you can find $1 million prize. And so there's no worse feeling than sitting down next to that author who's poured their life into this book and watch a really bad version of the movie of their book. It's an awful feeling.
So love what you buy.
Yeah,
Love what you
exactly,
invest
yeah.
in.
Yeah, I love
And
stories.
choose your collaborators well.
Yes.
And I know that you work in London, Diana, and also Michael, you're in New York, and those are two really obvious hubs. It doesn't matter where you're based as a publisher or a writer in terms of having access to the industry. Do you think? How can we kind of facilitate that so that it doesn't really matter if you're not kind of plugged in specifically to those two centres? Or would you advise people to get themselves agents, or how would you do that?
Well, I think with any empire, in its last days, they will hold on as brutally as they can to maintain their power base, whether it is Los Angeles, Manhattan, or London. But that is clearly cracking. Pixar proved that by not leaving Emeryville, and a lot of these YouTube stars are proving it by doing out of their basement with no money. But that will be, that's inevitable, and I think when that hold breaks, because Hollywood's an echo chamber, and everyone has breakfast, and have you read this, have you read that, and all of a sudden that's the hot
They don't know what anyone
thing.
else cares about. They only think they care. They only believe what they care about is real,
Yeah.
and they don't live in a real place, for sure. So they're always wildly surprised that women want to hear women's stories. Every time, oh my God, book club! Someone wanted to know about that. It's a shock to them because they're at the Four Seasons with the same guys.
Yeah.
But it's changing. It's changing, as Michael said. It's totally changing. But what we both agree on is get out of the house. So you can be living in Wigtown, but you have to do what you have to go down and meet some people. You have to come here. You have to try to go to Sundance. Make yourself meet and talk and share.
And know the craft too. I mean, there's plenty of books, but I think ultimately you do have to put in the 1 year of waitressing and working in Los Angeles or New York, just to know
what you're
how to
in.
navigate,
The value
know
of
the
the beast.
ecosystem. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And be nice to that assistant. Be nice to everybody.
And I will say too, there is some, a little bit of a controversial topic, there are some in the audience today self-published, people who are doing really well on Amazon. So for those people too, I would say they can follow a traditional route and they don't necessarily need a publisher to look on their behalf because they already have an inbuilt audience. So things are changing.
And I know that, Jessica, that you have taken stories into different spheres. So you've taken them into science, for example, and you were the storyteller at NASA.
Yeah.
These are all ways of kind of branching out and not thinking traditionally. Would you encourage other people to do that?
Yeah, I guess. You have to find the own rhythm of the way you think and follow it. And I would say it's true for where you are too. You have to be in a place that feels good to you regardless of whatever institutional systems there are, and then leave the house so that you can have meetings in other places. I lived in a very, very remote place, which is what Anna referred to in Wigtown, and I loved it. It really fueled my creative imagination for a very long time. So you have to, just like leadership where you kind of lead in a way that's very authentic to you and therefore will be successful. I think forcing yourself to think outside the box if you don't necessarily do that is not a good way to go. But if you're naturally inclined, yes, you've really got to trust the way you think and go for it.
And you can't expect to play for Manchester United if you've never kicked a soccer ball. So I think that's another mistake is every time people will write one script and say, okay, this is going to be a movie. And so then someone gave me the great advice to say, I said, well, I feel bad because I want to help people. Just say, let them know that you will read the third draft of their third script and everything forward. And then you'll know that they're in it for real. And I thought it was great advice.
Yeah, that's great advice. And Mike also brought up in our session that most everyone can write and are creative. And somewhere along the line during the education system, someone told you that you can write. That happened to me. And it really does knock your confidence. So being able to just continually pour out writing until you get to know your own style is really right. Quantity actually getting out stuff.
And isn't it all important to know your voice and learn your voice? And that doesn't happen on your first go. And what Hollywood and others like and want is a voice. That's what it is. A universal story told in a new voice.
Yes.
And no one teaches craft. They act like it's a black art that you grow up knowing what a midpoint is and how long the finale should be and what your opening image and your closing image should be. Same thing for simple writing in terms of topic sentences and paragraphs, and I think that just get more craft work in, and that just all comes from writing every day.
I would also say, I would add to that, what publishers can do and what also producers can do is remain curious about each other's industry. So having some publishers actually just get a little bit more knowledge about how the production world works would be very helpful to authors. And same with producers and the publishing world, but you were two examples here of people who know both. But in terms of what was helpful to authors, I think that would build a bridge better.
Sure.